shelter under here. Look what I've got. Yeah, you can shelter under there in a minute. The big line of them is probably best, isn't it? There's loads of them, and it's just bleak. It's just like, ugh. This is where it's going to be cool. So this is another shoot with Esther, and the weather was not in our favour, but we never say never. She was still happy to shoot, and we left hers, and unfortunately the weather just basically got worse. We decided to go down the beach just to see what it was like. It wasn't particularly windy inland, but as soon as we got to the beach we suddenly realised actually it's an onshore breeze and it's quite a lot windier than we thought.
Should I get some without this?
Do that first, it was cool. We can put the hood up as well. As the forecast was rain, she did bring a waterproof coat with her, but unfortunately it didn't really rain, it was just windy. So utilised the clothing she had. She bought whatever she thought was appropriate at the time, and it works really well in black and white, I thought. So we started off with that, and moved on just with the white top, which she brought with her. Let's say I didn't choose that, but it still worked very well. Wasn't cold, it was actually quite warm. I mean, Esther was probably disagreeing with this, but it wasn't cold as in like 2 degrees. It was still sort of 17, 18, but just windy. She was still smiling as always, which was great, and we were still getting the photos. It was just challenging, but it stayed dry while we were shooting, which was the most important thing. But I did have an umbrella, and I thought, well, we could use an umbrella, but it was so windy down the beach we'd have to go inland if it did chuck it down, and I was kind of hoping it would, because that way you could have, you know, use the umbrella, water pouring off the umbrella or something, but it didn't. So anyway, we stayed down here. Pet Level, the place is called, and it's got these amazing old sort of groins and stuff that have been worn and weathered and everything like that, which work really, really well, especially in black and white, as you can see there, textures and everything. And they're sort of double lined in a few places, like this one here. So we've got, you know, a little sort of passageway I could shoot through, you know, and stuff like that. So it worked really, really nicely. Shot with the A7R3 and the 135 gmaster. On these ones I also had the 35mm f1.4 samyang with me as well. All straight out of the camera pretty much, other than black and white conversions and a couple of colour changes and stuff. And it just, you can see that it was really windy, but you know, it worked. A bit of a bleak day compared to the Rye shoot, which is bright sunshine, not a cloud in the sky, so a complete and utter contrast. But it just worked, so I'm still pleased with the results. And then we'll go along and have a look, because along that bit where the cliffs are, I don't know if there's going to be any more sheltered, but there's quite a few bits there. Then we go back inland. It's a little bit less horrible. I don't know. That's cool. So as Esther sheltered underneath the little bit of groin there, it actually worked out quite being quite a good little spot. So we've got some cool shots there, as you'll see in a second. And I also focus working absolutely fine as usual, and face recognition. There's a lot of hair blowing around, so a couple of times obviously couldn't recognise the eyes, so it obviously used the face instead. Do some on the other side then. So yeah, no real shot failures at all. Every single shot I took that day, sharp face, sharp eyes. No trouble at all, even when shooting at f1.8 wide open. So it worked really nicely. Shot all in colour, and then converted to black and white, as you can see here. I really like the sort of halfway between black and white like that, so it just sort of, you desaturate quite a bit. Obviously I'm merging the two shots here on the video, but it is quite nice when you desaturate a little bit. Just I don't know, it adds a cooler feel, and you know, in black and white it just it can look a bit sort of moody and everything as well, so which is ideal for obviously this situation we're in with sort of moody, sort of windy, horrible weather. So you know, so we carried on shooting anyway, and basically we just wandered down actually right down to the beach itself where the sand was, just to see if we could get a couple of shots there. But Pet Level was very notorious for sort of the clay, sort of sticky, muddy stuff. It's not very pleasant to tread in. Basically ruins your shoes. So we're trying to find a sort of safe way to walk out. You can see some there. But the black stuff's kind of, I think, if I'm right, because this used to be an old forest, so it basically used to be woodland many thousands of years ago, and I think basically it's sort of been almost fossilised in the sand and the sea there. So you can see full-on tree trunks and stuff like that laying down that have been exposed, obviously, and they've just water saturated. But yeah, it's quite an interesting beach to wander along, and apparently I've seen people say that they've got fossils and things like that from there as well, so kind of a cool beach to actually have a look on. Anyway, so we had a quick wander along, tried to get a couple of other shots there out on the beach, but it was really windy actually, even coming down 50 metres or so, a bit more exposed onto the fully open section of the beach. The wind was properly blowing down there. It wasn't particularly good, but we did get a couple of shots like this. I haven't put all the photos up because as usual we get loads, but there's a couple of really nice ones where she's still smiling, which is great. It's a proper blustery, moody day, so the fact she's still smiling was really cool. We're still getting the shots, and moving hair like this really works in photos, and it just adds to the shot itself. We then moved down the road about half a mile or so, where you can walk basically to the cliff, which you can see in the distance there, and basically we thought it might be a little bit more sheltered. Probably it wasn't at all, really, unfortunately. But you'll see what it looks like down here. Just another good location, really. Let's stay for the shoot. Really, it's just not all work, mate. It's working well though. Hopefully next time it'll be nice. It's still that house. Okay. Esther really liked the house. It was up on the hill, sort of overlooking where we were. Kind of cool. It's like a mini castle, but sort of tropical sort of garden. It's pretty cool. So I think she wants to buy that at some point. So she better get saving up.
Like this?
So it turns out the post there, which is a really cool sort of landmark, was obviously quite wet and slimy. So Esther was a bit sort of didn't really want to hold on to it too much, which is understandable. But we still got some cool shots. She wasn't really leaning against it too much, but worked really nicely. And it just the drop off with that lens and everything. The fact you can get that sort of view. This one I really love. It's one of my favourite shots of the day. Just leaning on the post away from it, almost like she's swinging round, and it just works really nicely. So we moved over to the back over to sort of where the groin section is. It's proper weird. It's all sort of like bits of concrete and bits of obviously the wooden groin and everything, but in a random manner of how it's been sort of put together. So moved over that way a little bit just to get a few other shots. And this is where I made a bit of an error, and obviously no one's perfect, and I fully admit that I made a mistake. I actually left the electronic front curtain on, which is obviously the shutter part of the mechanism. And in these shots I've actually edited them so they look a little bit grainy. And unfortunately, in the original shots there's actually banding, so you get lines across the shot. That's completely my fault. I was shooting at 1/8000th of a second with lighting coming from the left hand side. Lighting her, which worked really well to balance obviously the background, but when you shoot with the electronic front curtain on, it can cause banding, which is a real shame. Can't see it when you had a preview quickly, but I managed to sort the shots. They don't look too bad at all. Add a little bit of grain to kind of add that sort of windy sort of, I don't know, outdoors kind of grainy feel, maybe a little bit more like film, but it did work in the long run. But I was a little bit pissed off with myself, unfortunately, but got away with it. And then we just carried on shooting a little bit more, and carried on. But I didn't realise until I got back and actually got the shots on the computer that actually the lines were showing on each photo, and I was like, no, what an idiot. But that's a learning curve. But saying that, I've never really shot at 1/8000th of a second high speed sync with flash generally. I have done, but not that close vicinity. I think from the distance it probably wouldn't have affected the shots, a little bit of filling, but because I was shooting close up. That's where the issues were. Love these shots. Really soft background, really sort of windswept look, hence the name of the video. And just a really lovely day. In fact, it turned out to be a really good photo shoot because it was so different to what we'd done recently beforehand. So where the weather was perfect, you've got a day like that, as you can see there, moody clouds, a little bit dull, but diffused light. So you know, for the clouds weren't actually that thick, so you had quite a little bit of light that was soft. So it really gave you a non-shadow, or no harsh shadows or anything like that. So it worked really well in the long run. And at the end it basically started raining, so we got away with it. So we started walking back as soon as it started raining. So that was it really.
Alright, ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. You alright?
Yeah.
And we do go back in again for a sec.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so sit looking along now, because I'm going to shoot. Oh fucking hell! I'm going to shoot right along. Come a bit closer. That's it. And then rotate towards me, so you're more like, if you can, maybe put the other leg down.
Like how?
Yeah, like that. Yeah, onto hip. Yeah, that's it. That's it. And if you put one hand along here, so straight out. That's it. I'm going to take one reflection shot. Do it again. That's it. Just going to take that again. Sorry. Right. The light's changed a bit. Oh shit. Right, ready? 3, 2, 1.
I have to hide my boobies again.
There. Then maybe do one sat on here if I look along. She's up. Then just turn your hips this way a bit.
So shooting with the 35mm f1.4 samyang lens, the autofocus version, really nice lens actually. The only downside is it's got a slightly noisy autofocus motor, but other than that it's really good lens, and obviously a bargain price. Really like these shots. As we were walking back where it had rained, you had these small puddles, but they were very shallow, which is really good for reflections like so. Because it's so shallow, you don't really get much rippling going on, especially when it's windy. So if you have deeper water, obviously it starts rippling and you get an issue. But this worked really well, and shooting off camera flash from the right hand side, lighting her up, worked really nicely as well, considering I didn't even have a light stand with me because it was just going to fall over because it was so windy.
It's pretty cool.
That's cool.
So really like this shot, just looking out to sea, sort of a thinking pose, which worked really nicely.
Yeah, come down. There you go.
Oh.
Wet camera.
So it started raining again, and so hood up as we walked back to the car. We were chatting about obviously the shoot that day compared to the Rye one, which was obviously bright sunshine, and the fact that these were a completely different style and quite sort of bleak looking, but quite rustic as well. So really pleased. I know she likes them as well, which is I'm really happy about, because obviously that's the most important thing, that she loves them, as well as the Rye shots. And that was it. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe, click the notification bell, and obviously look out for the number 3. So this was the second shoot we did in over the month. Unfortunately, we only managed to get 3 shoots done, but the last one is very special. I really like this one that's coming, so I shall see you soon.